Nation. The hobby is the people. Weekly news and interviews. It's your number one source. Sports Card Nation. The hobby is the people. Sports Card Nation.
Welcome to another stocked and loaded episode of the Sports Card Nation podcast, the show that brings you all the important hobby news, discussions, debates, opinions, info, and interviews with key hobby and sports dignitaries. Also, if you're good, you know we are going to give away something. Now, here's the guy that wanted the cards more than the gum. John Newman.
What is up? Welcome to episode 187 of Sports Card Nation. Glad to be back. Got some good news in my personal life. If you follow me on social media, you know I lost my regular job early September and have some offers, and I'm going to pursue one of them, and I'll talk more about it when I actually start. But it's a different direction from what I'm coming from. But it's going to be a more rewarding career for me personally, working with youth, something, as you know, very important to me. I've also got into driving for Uber, which is pretty cool. I'm a people person, and really having a blast doing that as well. And it doesn't even feel like work. Just kind of taking people where they need to go and talking. And some people like to talk, some don't. But the ones that do, it's been pretty cool. And man, the time goes quick doing it. So when you kind of set your own hours, you do it when you want to do it. I even think with this new career change, I'm probably going to do it a little bit on the side just for additional surplus income as well. So with the new job, my hours will be a lot better. No more 4:30 getting up. I'll give you a hint at what it is. It's going to be school hours, right? So 7 to 3. I think it'll even let me do some interviews earlier than I traditionally do. A lot of times I schedule interviews after 5:30, 8, 9 o'clock at night, which is fine. It's really not caused any issues, but there are some folks that say, hey, can we do it, before 5 p.m.? And with my previous job, that really wasn't possible. Some days I wasn't getting home to 5:30, 6 o'clock. Those days right now are going to be most likely over. So, it's going to be, I think it's going to be better for me mentally, frame of mind, and I think I'm going to be happier with what I'm going to be doing. Like I said, I'm not trying to be vague. I kind of gave a little bit away, but I'll go into more detail, on future episodes. Enough about me. Let's talk about this week's guest. Brett McGrath of Stacking Slabs, the podcast, twice a week, much like I do, and very similar. I believe he's Tuesday and Fridays, and Tuesdays is like Hobby Quick Hits, where he tackles kind of a topic, and like I do, and on Fridays, like Sports Card Nation you're listening to here, he has a guest on his show. I will be a guest on a future episode of Stacking Slabs. We're blessed with his presence on today's show. We're going to talk about content creation. He's a huge football guy, season ticket holder for the Colts, I believe, but we're both football guys. We're going to definitely talk about football and the hobby side of football. Again, content creation. Get his thoughts, as always, on Fanatics, and ask him what he sees in his crystal ball with that, and other things too. And glad to have him on. He's been doing a great job with that show, and has a great guest list as well with his Friday show. So Brett McGrath is our guest today. And let's enough of the intro here. Let's get this show going so we can get to that interview. Time for this week's incoming product releases. All right, just me doing the new release calendar for this week. We'll have some guest stars coming back up. If you're listening to the show on the release date here, October 1st, time is flying, right? Today, 2021, Bowman Sterling Baseball. Love the Sterling line. Hope we get it for years to come. We'll see how that all works out. 2021, Pro Set Metal Football. 2021, Topps Gold Label Baseball. Moving to October 6th, 2021, Panini Donruss Optic Baseball Hobby. Same day, the 6th, 2021, Panini Origins Football. Also on the 6th, 2021, Panini Chronicles UFC. On the 7th, or I should say on the 8th, 2021, Onyx Vintage Basketball, and also the 8th, 2021 Wild Card Mat Football Mega. And I tell you what, don't sleep on Wild Card. One of the most attractive looking cards that I've seen released this year, and have to open some more of that, and haven't opened enough. So kudos to Wild Card. There you go. That's this week's releases. Happy ripping. It's time for the Hobby What's Up, where we go around the hobby world and tell you all the latest news and breaking stories from the hobby we love.
What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up?
Well, Fanatics got a $350 million Series A funding investment. They have been evaluated, and they are being evaluated and worth $10.4 billion as a company. That's right, $10.4 billion as a company overall. What is that? To give you a comparison, that is more than the evaluation on Panini, Topps, and Upper Deck combined. 6 months after launching their graded card, sports card branch, CSG has opened its set registry. To participate, you have to be a CSG member. That is actually free, and you can request certain sets if you are a member. Dapper Labs, the creator of the NFT Top Shots of NBA, is now doing it for the NFL. It's their version of Top Shots for the NFL. It will be on the Flow blockchain and will launch sometime this season. Topps is back in the basketball game, but no, not the NBA, the Overtime Elite League. What is Overtime Elite? It's a new kind of D-type league for prospective NBA hopefuls. They can enter it. And Topps has signed 4 guys that will be part of the league to be in their new Overtime Elite set that will be offered through Topps Now, print on demand, $9.99 per card. But if you order quantities, obviously that price will come down. The 4 guys they signed for the initial release will be Jalen Lewis, Bryce Griggs, T.J. Clark, and Eisen Almanza. So those are the 4 first releases on Topps' new Overtime Elite Basketball release on the Tops Now platform.
Iron Sports Cards is your #1 source for all your PSA and other grading submissions. Their elite status improves turnaround times. Heck, they even provide the card savers. Their chat rooms provide updates on all your submissions. They also offer wax options and single cards to cover all the bases. Check them out on Facebook at Iron Sports Cards Group or on the web at ironsportscards.com, or even give them a call at 1-877-IRON-PSA. Rob's got you covered.
Sports Card Nation! It's now time to chop it up with our featured guest on the one-of-one card shop guest line. Let's go!
All right, happy to have my next guest on the show. He's not just a football guy, but he is a football guy. I have a kindness to those folks, and so automatically I like him just based on that. But even more than that, Stacking Slabs is this show, started in April of 2020, and happy to have him on. Probably should have had him on sooner. Like I told him off the air, that I'm going to own that one, but better late than never. Brett McGrath, welcome to Sports Card Nation.
Thank you so much, John. It is an honor to be here. I was mentioning this, I don't know, I put it out there somewhere, maybe on Instagram. It seems to be the platform of choice these days, that I was excited to be on the show. And when I re-entered the hobby, I did what a lot of people do and go to their podcast platform and search sports cards, and Sports Card Nation popped up. You were one of the first people I listened to. And so I got schooled and educated early, and love all the guests and conversations and camaraderie that you bring to the show. So excited to be here, and it's going to be a fun conversation.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I appreciate you saying that. I'm old, so that's why, and I was just smart. I said, I'm going to name the show Sports Card Nation. So someone types in sports card, by default, I'm going to be in their face, whether they like me or not. So that's every once in a while my brain works. That day it was firing on a couple cylinders. But all joking aside, I appreciate that. And, yourself as well is doing big things. It doesn't matter what date you started. There's no pension plan in content creation. I wish there was, but not at this point. And one thing I like about you do a similar thing. So for us here, we do Hobby Quick Hits on Monday, which is just my big mouth for 20 to 40 minutes, usually one topic. I kind of just ramble on, give my take on that, and then close up shop. And then Friday, this show, Sports Card Nation, is a guest-driven show, longer. And as I always say, more of the guests and less of me is usually the recipe for success. You do similar. Tuesday is your show where you're tackling a topic, and then Friday as well, you'll have a guest, Hobby Hustle, and you do a great job with that. One thing I appreciate about you, one of my platforms, I have a few, but one of mine is, have fun in the hobby. Whatever you do, there's no wrong way to do it, as long as you're not cheating anybody or doing anything that's not above board. There's no wrong way to hobby. I hear that with what you're doing. You have that sort of same mantra. There's many ways to hobby. You can collect whatever you want. You can pivot. Just kind of speak to that angle of kind of your platform as well.
Yeah, so I think there is so many ways to hobby, and I think from my perspective, it's all about never telling anyone what to do, how they should collect, what they should buy, but it's sharing the process and sharing the mindset that I'm going through and that we're all going through in the hobby. It's changed so dramatically from when, I was ripping packs in the junk wax era as a kid to where we're at today. And so I think like platforms like this one and platforms like I aspire to build with Stacking Slabs, like really like education is at the forefront, and there's so much content out there, but for me, like the content that's out there educating is what really sticks and resonates with me. And so, yeah, I see so much of the same all the time, and people chasing their neighbor and doing what the neighbor's doing, and everyone's collecting the same type of cards, and everyone people view that as kind of status. And I don't know, like I fell into that trap early when I got back in and learned quickly, like it wasn't making me happy. Like I want to collect the cards that I can tie back to memories and moments, and it makes me happy. And sure, do I want my cards to go up? Of course, I'm like everyone else. But I say this on my show a lot. It's really the passion over profit. And the more you lean into the passion, the more your cards will go up over time. You just got to be patient and come from a place of abundance. So just education and the opportunity and the ability to be unique are some of the themes and things I really like to talk about. And I kind of gravitate to others who share in a similar mindset and message.
Yeah. Well said. Again, and that's the thing. When I hear someone else say, I don't care about the value of my cards. Like, I'm like, liar. Like, you may not be the number one thing on your list, but we all care. You know what I mean? It's sort of, we take pride in some of our decision making. It may not be what drives us in the hobby, but we all do have an interest in, hey, what's this worth now? So whenever I hear that, Brett, I always laugh. I don't get mad, but I always laugh and, say BS, and
the best thing, I think, having guests on is like a hobby hack, because you talk with people and you learn from them. And, you take those experiences and those conversations, you do it for your audience so your audience can learn. But like, I'm sure you're like me, John, where it's like, this is like free hobby consultation at times. And, I had Adam, the Real 27 guy who does the basketball card fanatic, and he's a passionate basketball card collector. And we were talking about this topic, and he mentioned, like, when I make a decision to buy a card, it has to be right with my head and my heart. And basically what he was saying was that when he makes purchases, he wants to lead with that passion and to have a connection, but he also uses his head, where he doesn't want it to be a sunk cost. And obviously he wants it to be a big investment over a period of time. So like nuggets like that, like I always pick up and I think about it and store it away. And really that helps me evolve as a collector and someone who's, in this for the long haul.
Yeah. I've been doing this 38 years. I'm the old man on the porch, I like to say. And I always, like you said, another thing, I love what you said, Brett, is, you don't tell someone what to do. You may give your opinion, but ultimately they have to make that decision for themselves. We're seeing a lot of content. I think you touched on it, where it's a little more, hey, do this, do that. To each their own. It's not my style. It's not necessarily your style. I can tell you this, for being whatever the 38 years in the hobby experience gets you, I'm wrong a lot of times. So we see this hobby, it changes not by the week or by the day, but literally by a few hours, this news breaking. And so there's no way to know everything. I'm learning at 38 years in, I'm learning stuff every day still. When I stop learning, that means it's over for me. It's a different hobby than it was 38 years ago. I think that just goes without saying. And so one thing I try not to do, I'm not saying I'm 100% accurate with it, but I rarely, or I try not to say I know. I like to say I think, or experience tells me, but experiences can change too. And so I don't like the I knows or I guarantees. I'm not saying every once in a while I might not slip on a banana peel, but generally I try not to do that, because I was on this show when the pandemic kind of first hit, and you can look it up. It's that's the thing. Proof's in the pudding. I was on that episode saying, hey, cards might be in for a little bit of a downturn. It's not going to be on the forefront of people's mind. Putting food on the table, paying your mortgage, paying bills, and cards are going to kind of take a back seat. Obviously, we know, almost 2 years later, we're still in the pandemic. Some numbers are trending obviously better with vaccine news and that. But, we've seen the hobby explode, crescendo, the opposite of what I said. So I was wrong. I'm glad hobby-wise I was wrong. And so I always point to that as a current thing to say 38 years. And I get, my assumption was wrong. So what did this hobby is ever changing. And so I try not to be, I know, or I guarantee, because people hold your feet to the fire. They're going to be, hey, John, you said this, or whoever, right? You said that. And rightfully so. If you say, you got to you put yourself out there. So I always try to say, this is sort of how I see it. But again, I don't know. It's all speculation. Kind of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, I think first, one thing I'll call out that is admirable, and I wish more people would do it. When you do say something and you do forecast or speculate and it doesn't add up, you get on your show and say, hey, I'm going to raise my hand. You know what? I said this about a year and a half ago, and you know what? It didn't pan out. Like, so much of us in our collecting and our content creation make mistakes and say things that we regret, but the power is in admitting to it. And there is there are no hobby points for like things you say or forecast and that go right. Like, the points really are in the ability for us as individuals to admit when we might have said something that wasn't right. And just, to me, as a marketer, what I do professionally, I do marketing in the B2B software space and like help build brands. Like, that helps build and elevate your brand. And everyone has an Instagram page. If you have an Instagram page or a Twitter page or whatever your platform of choice, that means like you've got a brand, and how you show up and how you are represented in kind of the hearts and minds of other people around you that you're interacting with. And I think it's just so important to be honest, because we're self-regulating. Like, this hobby is self-regulated. Like, there's no hobby police. And I think the hobby does a really
There are some that have put their own little deputy badge on. I think we both know.
There are those accounts and pages, and you might not like everything they do, but like, they're watchdogs, and I think they're good for the hobby at some level.
And I joke, Brett, and you make a great point. They're very informative, and they probably prevented some people maybe from getting taken advantage of. So they do serve a good purpose. I think when they come from a good place, it's fine. I think when it's just to sort of trump themselves up or make a name for themselves, I think it goes to a different place. But yeah, great point by you as well.
Yeah, I think to me, this is a community. We are trying to buy the cards we want. We are trying to we want those cards to go up, but we also have the opportunity to share information and learn from each other. And I don't want to be on here sounding like old kumbaya or whatever, but this is an escape for a lot of people. We're busy. We've got lives. We got jobs. We got kids. We got bills to pay. When we're in the hobby, this is our escape from that. So let's have fun and let's learn from each other. That's kind of the approach I like to take with sports cards.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I've said, if you're not having fun in the hobby, what are you doing? What are you doing it for? And that's the beauty too, Brett. And I know you've said this yourself. You can change what you're doing. You're the CEO of your own hobby company. You don't have a board of directors. You need to get permission. Hey, I want to pivot from wrestling to football, whatever. I'm just throwing stuff off the top of my head. You can make that decision. The closest board of directors I have is I'm married 21 years, so probably my wife. And even with that, I don't always ask permission. So that's the beauty, is you can change what you're doing anytime you sort of want to, if you want to. All right, going to step aside real quick to pay a few bills, but we'll be right back with more with Brett. Sports Card Nation is back with more with Brett McGrath. If someone's not really having fun, I understand. We get, especially being content creators, we got to talk about some things that are not always great things or good things. And sort of, I always feel sort of, I don't want to say obligated, and I'm not a watchdog, but I it's not always roses and daisies. Sometimes we got to talk about some of the negative things going on just to kind of balance that yin and yang out. But there's ways to still talk about that and yet still have fun in the hobby. And I always tell folks, you see some posts on social media, this is not the hobby I was in 20 years ago, or I'm thinking of getting out, or not enjoying myself. And I always, if I know the person, I usually will try to reach out. Sometimes even if I don't know them super well, I might send a DM like, hey man, I'm sorry to hear that, but think about doing something that will bring you joy, whatever that might be. I don't know you or that well enough, but whatever it is, you can kind of change direction, change course. You're your own boss in this. And I've had a few people say, yeah, I didn't really think of it in those terms. It took you to say that, and that's the beauty of it. If you're not having fun, try something else or go in a different direction. Now, if you do that and you're still not having fun, I don't know. I'm not telling anyone to leave. I'm not that guy, but at the end of the day, we have to make our own personal decisions, whether we want to continue or not continue in the hobby. But I think sometimes people are looking for the exit door sometimes too quickly without thinking about other ways to enjoy the hobby more. And so I always try to be that guy, being an old guy in the hobby. There's two trains of thought there, right? There's some people that have been in the hobby a long time, like me, that sort of resent some of the new folks, if you will. And then I try to take the other side of that coin. Like, hey, I was new. Yes, it was 38 years ago, but we were all started somewhere. There's no pension plan. There's no tenure. Whether you're me and you did this, been doing this for 38 years, or you started yesterday, it makes no difference. We're in the same fraternity. And I welcome those who new. I know there's a lot of flippers. I don't like them. They're making it bad for the, again, it goes back to me. My stance is as long as you're not doing anything illegal or underhanded or dirty, it's America. It's free enterprise. We might not like what someone does, but that's their thing. And this hobby is huge. It's at its probably biggest point as far as membership goes, and I'm all for it, and I'm not going to be like turf wars and that sort of thing. But there is that element. But I'm not going to be on that side of the aisle. I was new 38 years ago. Like I said, when I came in, I was welcomed with open arms from people who were in the hobby a lot longer than me, and I want to sort of be the same way now, sort of being that old man on the porch, so to speak, that grizzled vet for whatever that's worth.
Yeah, I think at the heart of it, for me, it's about I love hobby is the people, right? That's your catchphrase. It's a good one. It is the people, and for me, I'm in this because it's an escape, and I love the collecting element of it. I know we're going to get into football conversation, but I'm a diehard Colts fan. I'm a season ticket holder. It hasn't been a great start, but that's okay because I lived through all the years, fun years, and Peyton Manning's my guy. So my ability to dig in and go down that Peyton Manning lane and meet other Peyton Manning collectors, it's really it's what motivates me to put in a lot of energy, and I love that, and I love learning from them. And I also understand there's a lot of other things that are happening in the hobby. You mentioned flippers and all these other breakers and all these other things. And while that might not be for me, I do realize that a lot of passionate Manning collectors, all the cards are buried in their PCs. So it takes a role like a flipper to come in and get access to one of those cards, then try to flip it. And then it gives someone like me who maybe never have seen the card, gives me the opportunity to go purchase. So there's a role there. It might not seem like it's something that you might not be directly interested, or you might think negatively of these certain individuals and what they're doing. However, they do keep the hobby moving, and they also roles like breaking expand the hobby. So the more people doing different things in the hobby, as long as it's not committing fraud or taking advantage of people, like that's great for our cards and that's great. I just think what I'd love to see just as the hobby progresses is just more segmentation of those hobby interests and more content that's pointed at catering to those interests. The more I think we hit on certain segments with our message, the more it'll resonate. And I think, personalized content for whatever avenue we're exploring or want to explore is a really good thing. And I see it starting, but that's something that I'm hoping to see more of in the future.
Yeah, I agree. And, we've seen that too. We sort of the hobby sort of mimics society issues, right? If someone doesn't think exactly like we do or believe in the same things, right? It's sort of, you're right. I'm right, you're wrong type of thing, instead of, hey, you're just doing it a different way. And we see that in society, and I don't want to make the show a political one, but
please don't.
But you know where I'm going.
Sure.
As people, we bring what happens in the outside into the hobby. The hobby's real life too. I'm guilty of that on my show. I always say in hobby, and then I use real life, like the hobby's not, but it's all part of the big picture. And we gotta, this is about as soapbox as I try to get, is like, we got to quit putting people in boxes. We're all in this. We're on the same fraternity. We might do different things, but at the end of the day, we're still enjoying the hobby. Again, maybe different ways, and what works for you might not like what someone else is doing, but that's their business. Enjoy the hobby the way you do. Like you said, too, a great point by you is, for those of us which is, I think, the majority of us that do care, hey, what is this worth? All those transactions that's going on a daily basis, whether that's a flipper like we talked about or a breaker, those are all part of the equation to what your cards are worth. So if you do care about, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't be critical of those folks and then, worry about what your cards are worth or not worth. And so that's all part of the big picture. And we need to realize that you don't have to do it. If you don't like being a flipper and that's not your thing, that's the beauty. That's what we already talked about. You don't have to do that. That's what they like to do. And I think we've all, even if you're not a flipper, whatever the exact definition is, I bought something on Monday and sold it on Wednesday. I bought something on Monday and I still have it 10 years later. So I don't consider myself a flipper, but I have sold something like a couple days later or the next day. I don't think that. So we like to, that's the other thing. We like to put labels on people. I think we need to get away from that. You just do, like we said, you just hobby the way you choose to, do it above board and do it the right way. And there is no wrong way if you do it like that. It's just to each kind of their own. I want to ask you, Brett, some content creation stuff too. You're year and a half into launching the show. Other than listenership going up, like what's been the biggest maybe surprise or something you didn't expect?
Yeah, I think for me, it's been the relationships that have been built and developed because of the show. Typically, what happens is I'll follow someone and watch their content, and this is just what they're posting on Instagram and how they're sharing information, and it'll interest me. And then eventually I'll reach out to the individual and I'd say, I'm learning a ton from you. I'd love to have you on my show. And, like we did before you hit record, it's like you get to know someone, like you learn like about them outside of just maybe some messages and interactions, and just, then you have the conversation. And now this seems a little bit like podcast inception, but that's okay. That's where we're talking content. But like you have the conversation, you realize after you share it out, and if you listen back to it one time, you're like, man, like I learned a lot, and it gets you to think a little bit differently about how you approach the hobby, or maybe you go deeper in a certain area because of the conversation. And then that leads to a message thanking the guests. And then all of a sudden you're building this rapport, and like, you have guests on the show and it just builds over time. And then all of a sudden you just have this massive network of people that you build a relationship with who've shared information. And I like to look at it as like they shared information on the show and I benefited and the guests benefited. There's still information there. And so like, how can we work together and kind of continue to build this relationship and share? And then you go to shows like, I went to the Dallas show and then I went to the National, and it's like you meet these people in real life and you're like, God, like you could be like, you remind me of my friend in high school. Like, and then all of a sudden, like I'm sitting down at dinner with my wife and I'm calling these individuals my friends, and because they're my friends. Like,
all right, real quick break to hear from one of our great sponsors, the Sports Card Shop at MoCo, doing great things in Michigan and across the Hobby Nation as they ship as well.
The Sports Card Shop is your small-town local card shop with a global reach. Located in New Buffalo, Michigan, the shop is one of the most accessible in the Midwest. In addition to being an authorized Panini Direct dealer, the Sports Card Shop carries all major trading card brands, including Topps, Upper Deck, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, and more. With all that new wax, 500,000 singles, and showcases full of graded cards, you're sure to find something great for your collection, whether you're just starting out or a seasoned collector. The Sports Card Shop is your one-stop shop. So call us, come see us, or visit us on the web and social media. Our phone number is 269-469-0140. Website is thesportscardshop@moco.com. The Sports Card Shop is part of the MoCo Retail Group, connecting sports, the hobby, and people around the world.
We are back with Stacking Slabs, Brett McGrath.
We're having a baby here. First baby,
Yes.
baby girl coming up here.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you. We're in a couple weeks, and dude, people from the hobby that I built relationships with are sending my daughter to gifts and new clothes and Colt stuff and Stacking Slabs branded onesies, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Like this is amazing. Shout out Rob, a sports card therapist, and shout out Drake's PC for the gear. But that's I was not expecting to build friendships like I have through the show.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have one son as well. He's 21. If anyone wants to send him a onesie, I will make him. I will make him wear it just for the fact that you sent it. But no,
somebody do it. Challenge.
But no, that all joking aside, that's the hobby community. It's great. From one father to a father to be. It's going to be life-changing and obviously a positive fashion. Congratulations to you and your wife. And it's hard to put in words. Even 21 years later for me now. I don't even have a kid. He's a grown man. We do actually a football podcast called Roughing the Passer. So we like to argue on that. We talked off the air about sort of our opinions on where the Steelers are at. But being a father, it's a life-changing thing. I'm biased, but there's nothing better than that. And so congrats. And, that's an awesome thing. But the hobby community is great. It's funny you mentioned the National. I too went to Dallas. I'm not sure if it was the same one, but the National, obviously. I always say I don't have a big head. I put my pants on one leg at a time. If I go to my supermarket here, when we're done recording, I drive to the supermarket. No one says, "Hey, are you John Newman from Sports?" I think there's certain, people who kind of I don't know how do I want to word this, but sort of thrive on that more than others. But going to the National, it's funny, getting recognized. I'm always humbled by it, and I was in line for the Topps Q&A to sign up for that. And I was talking to two friends of mine I was in line with, and the person behind me tapped me on the shoulder, who I didn't know him. And he said, "Are you John Newman?" I thought it was like the FBI or something. I'm like, so I like, there was like a second pause. It probably felt like 10 seconds. And I'm like, "I am." He goes, "I love your show. I recognized your voice." And so this is a guy that recognized my voice from maybe didn't know what I looked like, but just heard me talking to the two friends of mine I was online with and recognized my voice. And it like that stuff always like amazes me. And I'm, shook his hand. I had some stickers and show swag. I obviously gave him some, and thanks for listening. I always make a point too, and I know you feel the same way. At the end of the show, I always obviously thank the guest and thank those out there that download and take the time out of the day. They don't have to do that. And here's the other thing. When I started in 2018, November of 2018, I'm an honest guy. There was a lot less sports card hobby podcasts than there are now, and even when you started in April 2020, yeah. And I think, I don't want to, I think it was easier for me starting in November of 2018 than if I would have started today or even in April of 2020. I think the pool, there was more people swimming in the pool. It's harder to, you got to, your content's got to sort of hit a nerve and strike people when there's more to choose from. So I kind of got, full disclosure, I'm an honest guy. I think I got in at a good time to do it today. I'm not saying I couldn't be successful, but the landscape the terrain would be more difficult to navigate to do a new show now than in November of 2018. Kind of your thoughts. You agreed? What do you think?
Yeah, I think obviously being first to market or one of the first to market is always a good position to be in. But also, like, for me, there is a lot of hobby content, but I try to encourage people, if they talk about wanting to create a show, build a show, I encourage people to do that. But I also encourage people to make it unique and different, because the more unique and different your show is, the more like people are going to be interested in that topic. And maybe it's not like you'll be the number one hobby show in the land, but all it takes is a passionate following to really get traction and having people tell their friends. So I think for me, the cream always rises to the top. I just sit back and stay true to what I'm about and what I do, and people seem to enjoy it. And like you said, the same thing happened to me right when I got into the National. First dealer I went to, he had 1982 Wrestling All-Stars, which is, for anyone out there who doesn't know anything about wrestling cards, it's the GOAT set of wrestling cards. So I gravitated towards
even I know that, and I'm not a wrestling guy, so that'll tell you. Yeah, but go ahead.
Yeah, so I was talking, and I said to the dealer, I said, "Oh man, you got 82 All-Stars," and all of a sudden, a head turned, and this individual said, "Brett from Stacking Slabs," and I said, "Yeah," and he said, "I recognize your voice," and he said, "I'm Rob," and it was Rob who I mentioned gave me the onesie for my daughter, who has a podcast that I'll plug, Sports Card Therapist. Go check it out. But he's like, we had been trading messages, and the first person I ran into at the National just heard my voice. And then, of course, we've chatted about wrestling cards, and we're standing there belly to belly on a showcase of the greatest wrestling card set of all time. And so I get to meet this individual, strike a friendship, and we look down and we're talking about all the cards. And like, I was like, what a way to kick off the National. Like, this is what this is all about. So that gave me just a boost and jolt of energy just going into that show. But like, Rob has since the National started his podcast, and I was a guest on it. And I watch him, and he's hustling, and he's bringing on guests and sharing perspective. And I'm like, if you're out there and you've got a unique point of view and you're passionate about helping people out, go do it. Just like, go take a chance. And if you get tired of it, you get tired of it. But I don't know. I support hobby creators, and the more we have that are sharing information, I think the better off we'll be in the hobby.
Yeah, I agree. And when I got started, obviously I wasn't the first one. Like I said, there was 5 or 6 shows. And one thing, credit to them, they all were very helpful. and welcoming and helpful to me. And I try to reciprocate that even now. I have people, I'm sure you get it as well, will message me, hey, I'm thinking about doing this, and I support it. If you have a passion, and turn that mic on. You'll learn as you go. Your 30th episode will be better than your third, or at least I hope so. At least it was in my case. I listened to some of those early ones and I cringe. But I would actually, if it wasn't sort of part of the history of the show, I'd actually delete them. And I always joke, like, I hope people start like in the 40s and 50s, because they listen to the two early ones and be like, this sucks, and they'll just be out. But again, you got to start somewhere. I'm supportive of anyone. I don't discourage anybody. I always tell them, like, listen, don't worry so much about the numbers early. Just feel it out. You'll know what works. If there's things I did on those early episodes that don't exist no more, and some that do, and you'll learn what works and what doesn't. Or if you don't learn, people will tell you anyway. And
they will.
Be open to feedback. I think that's important. You don't have to do everything anyone says, but be open to hear what people said. Many of the segments I've done that have went away have been because someone said, hey, man, I don't like it. It doesn't work for me. And many of the segments that are kind of new is someone sort of, hey, I want to hear you talk about this or do this. And so, those are the people given their time to not kind of listen to what they're saying. I don't think it's necessarily fair. But so, again, I had a lot of support kind of coming in, even though there was a lot less shows, and I tried to sort of pay it forward with people who asked me, like, whether it be, hey, what equipment do I need? What platform should I use? How do you do it? How long is it? Whatever the question is, I always try to answer and be supportive. And I was raised sort of like that, but also the fact that people were like that with me, I just think it's the way you should be. And it speaks kind of to who we are when we're there in that fashion. All right, time to take another quick break to hear from a great sponsor, Pastime Marketplace. They make some of the best graded card and card cases you'll find on the market today.
Pastime Marketplace has a line of graded card cases that are waterproof, airtight, dust-tight, and hardened to protect and organize your valuable collection. Each of our cases come with pre-cut and pre-formed foam, so you don't have to cut and tear the foam when you get your case. The pre-cut foam inserts are sized to hold PSA, Beckett, SGC, and CGS slabs. Store it all safely and securely with a case from Pastime Marketplace. Check them out at www.pastimemarketplace.com.
We have returned with more with Brett McGrath. All right, let's get into some football. Like I said in the intro, you're a football fan. You're a Colts season ticket holder. I'm not a Steeler. I'm on the list. I'm on the waiting list for the Steelers. The way they're playing right now and moving up that list, there's probably other people don't renew their season tickets. But huge football fan. I know you are. You know your stuff. I like to think I know a little bit here and there. Football is always kind of on the hobby side of things. It's always sort of viewed as the stepchild, if you will. When we talk about basketball and baseball, it doesn't faze me. I still love it, being a huge fan. I think we both can agree. Obviously, it's a quarterback driven hobby, but we've seen, if you ask me, we've seen sort of wide receivers kind of close that gap. Wide receivers' careers, especially in very good ones, last double-digit years as well. We've seen more kind of hobby love go to some of these guys that have, put up the numbers and build their Hall of Fame resume. DeAndre Hopkins comes to mind right off the bat. There's others. Running backs, as we both know, sort of that window is very short, even to the best of them. I'll throw a Steeler guy sort of under the bus. Le'Veon Bell went from, the best running back in the league, sat out a year and now basically an afterthought, probably not a Hall of Famer. He went from hobby, top of the hill running back to, he's on a team that actually is hurt for running back and still not getting carries. And so I always tell people with running backs, if you want to collect a guy because you're passionate and you like them and that's what it is for you, that's great. But if you're doing it for the financial aspect, be careful with running backs because the proof's sort of in the pudding. Running back's career is 4 to 6 years, sometimes shorter. You can be a top tier running back and then you're not even starting somewhere else. And it's crazy to think. And we even see with teams drafting Brett, like running backs have gone now lower in drafts compared to what they have in the past. To me, it's quarterback, wide receiver, but wide receiver sort of closing that gap a little bit. I always just tell folks, if you like I love Najee Harris as a Steeler guy, but I'm not. If I'm buying Najee Harris's, like you would say, I'm buying Najee Harris's because I like him, not because I think they're going to be. I'm going to buy him for $10 and they're going to be $40, 8 years from now. That'd be nice, but that's not my mindset. So you're a football guy. Just kind of your take on maybe what playing off of what I said.
Yeah, so I think undeniable. So I guess I'll take the receiver. I'll talk about receivers a little bit. So I think receivers are exciting. Receivers are the guys dancing in the end zone on Sundays. We have them on our fantasy teams. We're all watching Red Zone, and they're exciting, right? We love it when our receivers that we have on our fantasy or that are on our squads catch 80-yard bombs. Seeing that on Sundays, like, gets our minds to be like, all right, well, how can I incorporate this into cards? And at the end of the day, like, buy who you want, buy who makes you happy, and buy like what is going to help build and be part of your collection, like, by all means. But you've got to take into consideration the value and just I think it's just really, really difficult for wide receivers to break through and be that like investment piece that's going to, 3X, 4X, 5X, as time passes. Because you got to look at these, like it's a quarterback driven league. And I like to compare it to like let's just take the Los Angeles Lakers when they won the championship. Everyone was talking about AD and wanting to buy Anthony Davis cards and how it was a good move because they thought the Lakers were going to win the championship. Well, the fact of the matter is like LeBron was their guy, and like LeBron is what steers the ship, and AD is, obviously, people could argue not injured, one of the top 10 best players. However, him being a big man and him being kind of second fiddle to LeBron, like, hurts his collectability in a way. And that's the same way I look at wide receivers, is that there's got to be a guy on the other end tossing him the ball, and that's the guy who kind of steers the ship for the team. So that I always care. Like, I buy some Colts wide receivers here and there just because I like them, but I'll never like put my hard-earned money in receivers and try to make an investment out of it. So that's kind of just my thoughts on receivers. Running backs, they're riskiest position. They're exciting, but they're hurt. They don't have long shelf lives. Like, I would say, if you want to take a little bit of a chance, receivers probably over running backs. But I think like the majority of the conversation should be around the quarterback position, especially because like I think what excites me is, and why I've been talking about football cards all this year, is one, like, I love them. Like, I'm a football guy, but we just got the opportunity at the beginning of this year to watch. And this pains me, John, as a Peyton Manning guy, and I will say this: I'm a big boy now. I admit this. We had the greatest quarterback of all time, Tom Brady, win his 7th ring against.
I don't like Tom Brady either, so we're waving the same pennant. But like, I know where you go. Listen, you can't argue with what he's done, whether you like him or not like him. The proof's in the pudding. They just, as a Steeler fan, as a Colt fan, he's been our arch nemesis. We both can make a point that he's probably prevented our teams from having more rings. But yeah, go.
No, but when I sat there and I watched him, I will vividly remember this. I was sitting. My wife was actually watching the Packers-Buccaneers game with, and he throws 3 touchdowns, and he ends up winning the game. And I look at her and I just say, like, it's time for me to quit being a hater. I'm going to appreciate this guy because he's something special doing this here in freaking Tampa Bay. And then he goes on, the best player in the league he's up against, Patrick Mahomes, Super Bowl of all Super Bowls. Kansas City's offensive line, I know, dinged up. Patrick Mahomes was running for his life, but Brady did what Brady does. He won again. Now, when that happened and that Super Bowl took place and Brady won again, I sat there and I just said, you know what? It is like, strap in, football card collectors. It is time to roll. And we have seen, you layer that Super Bowl on top of, a rookie class who is not started out well, but the expectations are too high. Like rookies didn't start, and that wasn't an expectation back until, like, I think it was, Flacco making it to the playoffs in his rookie year, and all of a sudden, the expectation was like
Russell Wilson, Flacco. Those are the 2 rookie quarterbacks that sort of bucked the trend as far as making a playoff run as rookies. But generally, it doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen.
Right.
So our expectations are high, but there's a lot of hype always around rookies. So you got the quarterbacks, then you got the quarterbacks from last year. Then you're just like looking at like the divisions, and you're like, wow, like almost every team has a quarterback with potential. And so when I saw that taking shape, coming off the heels of the Super Bowl, I was like, you know what? Like, I think there's going to be more interest than ever in football cards. And I think that's taken shape. And I think that excites me. And I'm seeing more people who are just basketball guys or just maybe baseball guys now entering football cards, buying cards, having conversations, and seeing more football cards in my Instagram feed than ever. And it's exciting. And I'm not here to say like football cards are going to be the number one, but to me, it's like Sunday's shut down in cities everywhere. All eyes are on football, and it's like people are betting money, people are playing fantasy, people are playing DFS. It's like, let's show some love for football cards, and I think that's starting to happen. And I think as a primary football collector and guy, like it gets me excited because I'm seeing more interest than ever.
Yeah, I agree. Baseball fans are going to like me saying this, but I've said football's replaced baseball, and I love baseball. I'm not trying to be critical, but football is America's pastime now. I mean, like you said, from Sundays is football, Mondays is football. Now we got Thursday night football, fantasy leagues, daily fantasy leagues. My wife, who's not necessarily a sports person, she's the biggest Steelers fan along with me and my son. She knows the players. There's no baseball team that she's comparable with. I've said that. I think football has the biggest ceiling as far as the hobby goes. I think it has the biggest room to grow and improve. I think that's what you said yourself. And I think it's early innings, if you will, or early quarters with football. Again, it is quarterback driven. One thing I want to say, Peyton Manning, I'm not a Colts guy, but I've bought a lot of Peyton Mannings in the last couple of years. I think he's still very undervalued for when you look at his numbers and what he is and what he's done and 2 Super Bowl rings. You got to remember Brady probably prevented a few more, but arguably right there, one of the greatest quarterbacks ever to play this game. And I think his stuff is crazy undervalued. I think he's done playing, and yet I still buy his rookie cards because I look at him, I'm like, can't believe I just picked that up for that price. There's no way that should be happening. One of my favorite cards, Brett, period, of any sport, I'm not even just saying my favorite, is that I know it's not his best card per se, but I love the Stadium Club rookie Peyton Manning. I think that design with the emboss is raised, the hologram. I love anytime I look, whether I'm at a show, looking through a box or that's in the showcase, and I can buy more of those. I've kind of stacked those up. I'm in the double digits now. I just love the card. Again, I don't, it's not value-wise, it's not going to be his most expensive card, but aesthetically, I love that design that year, and the fact that it's Peyton Manning's rookie on top of that, and to me, grossly undervalued for the quarterback he actually was. I'm always picking that. Seems to be that card I always come out of a show with 2, 3, 4, 5 if I'm lucky. And it's funny, for someone who sells cards, I never list that card for sale. I just kind of stack them and put them away and that sort of thing. And there's guys like that. Peyton's one, but there are other guys like that are still so, when you look at the numbers in the career, like, in Manning's case, sort of, I don't want to say overshadowed. People aren't sleeping on Manning. He's a Hall of Famer. But because he played at the same time as Brady, that's where the eyes first go to. But when you look at what Manning's done, he's right there. And to me, doesn't get enough credit. And in turn, his values are a little bit lower to me than they should be. It's a great opportunity to buy. I'm sure you feel the same way being a Colt. I'm not a Colts guy, and I'm buying Peyton Manning. So I got to feel like you would feel the same way.
Yeah. So I think I mentioned earlier the fact that I turned to my wife and I said, I'm going to start appreciating Brady. And I think part of that goes into cards where so many people too want to focus in sometimes about not cheering for a player because they want their player that they're collecting's value to go up. Like I kind of see it the opposite, where it's like, I'm cheering for Brady because the gap between Brady's cards and Manning's cards are so significant that it'll eventually, Manning's cards will never reach Brady's, but it'll eventually, increase just based on the nature of the market and the market conditions. And Tom Brady, attaching the two, some people would argue bird magic. That's totally cool. Like for me, the greatest rivalry of all time for me is Brady and Manning. And it's just such an iconic rivalry. And one of those players is still active and still winning Super Bowls.
Hopefully he's done winning Super Bowls.
Yeah. People are like, oh, I can't believe the Bucs lost. The Bucs lost. And I texted my friend, the Bucs lost, but you know what's going to happen here. The Bucs play the Rams in the playoffs, and what's going to happen, So I think you mentioned other guys too, and I don't just want to pump Peyton. Peyton's everywhere. Everyone knows Peyton's great. But I think so many people want to put money in these young quarterbacks and hope for the best. It's go look at these Hall of Famers that have great cards that are in the 90s and are designed awesome and are serial numbered, short printed, those those players, the Marinos, the Elways, the Aikmans, the Youngs, and even Montana outside of his rookie card, go dig into those guys. If they made you feel something when you grew up, just because they're not playing doesn't mean you can't collect them. That's kind of where my mindset is been. I want to mitigate my risk, and I want to put my money into the blue chippers and the classics. And I think a lot of these 80s and 90s quarterbacks go overlooked and go underappreciated, where it's you don't necessarily need to get their rookie card, but go check out this insert or this serial number card from this. And someone doesn't need to go find it first. You can be the one to go find it. So that's kind of my mindset is yes, it's exciting. So many quarterbacks, there's tons of opportunity, but there's also a bunch of guys out there who've got rings, who are in the Hall of Fame, who people aren't talking about right now.
Yeah. Here. You stole my thunder. I think a real quick break to hear from one of our great sponsors, 101 Card Shop. We'll be right back.
What doesn't one of one card shop do? From box, case, and personal breaks, there's always fire being pulled. They offer bulk grading subs, and their large store located in Strongsville, Ohio, offers an incredible selection of sports cards, non-sports, and authentic autographed memorabilia. Steve and family will treat you right. Check them out on Instagram at One of One Card Shop or on the web at oneofonecardshop.com.
Sports Card Nation is back with more from Brett McGrath. I think out of all the four major sports too, Brett, when you look at some of what you just said, there's some guys that are still great buys. They're done playing. They're actually wearing the gold jacket. They're in the hall. When you look at their cards, you mentioned it. Some of them are numbered, not very prevalent, and they're still a great at an affordable price. Where and Kyler Murray, who's playing great. I'm not taking nothing away from him, but his stuff is skyrocketed. Where like there's other guys that have already put together a Hall of Fame resume. And like, Marino, for example, along with Manning, like you can get Marino graded rookies at a pretty decent clip. I mean, his bugaboo was never winning a Super Bowl. He got there his rookie year, lost, never got back there again. But no one can argue legitimately he's not one of the best quarterbacks of all time. He just didn't get the jewelry. But when you look at the numbers and he's still an all-time great, and to me, his cards are still, even his autograph stuff is very affordable to acquire. And again, not taking away anything from Kyler, but Kyler's in is literally his third year. God forbid, I mean, he could get hurt and his career could be over. You got someone like Marino. You mentioned Elway, and a lot more of those guys that you can get. You can get some great, whether it be a rookie card, graded raw, an autographed insert at such a great price. It's how do you not look at it? I always say out of the four sports, football, the best deals are still to be had on the football side of the house. And maybe I'm a huge football fan anyway, but I think that also sort of highlights even more so why being in the hobby as well that I like football cards, because they're just even 10, 20 years after a guy's done playing, even Jerry Rice stuff, and maybe not so much as rookie anymore, but some of the other stuff is still obtainable. And, that's the fun. You look at, I mentioned him already, DeAndre Hopkins, when he's done playing, he's still playing and putting up crazy numbers. Probably got at least a few, 3-4 more years. When he's done, he's not going to probably eclipse Jerry Rice's numbers, but he's going to be probably in that conversation. And there's rookie cards of his, $2, $3, you know what I mean, that you can buy today. I've got a box of probably, I don't know, 100, 200 of them, Again, not so much that I think they're going to be, but like for a couple bucks, like this guy is I'm not a fan of the Cardinals or the Texans when he was there, but it's just a great, a GOAT in the wide receiver position. Oh. They're going for that low. I'm just going to scarf them up and not worry about selling them and just kind of keep them and just stack them up, and there's a lot of guys like that. It's funny when we mention guys always afterwards, I'm like, we could have mentioned him, but those who want to do their homework, we've talked about them on their individual shows as well. I think football has the biggest ceiling still with guys like that still are great buys that have room to grow as far as value goes.
I've got you brought his name up, and I got to mention this, and I've got a national deal transaction story that I think is worth sharing, and it involves Kyler Murray. So I had bought a bunch of Kyler Murray cards, nice Kyler Murray cards, in his second year, right? He went down with the shoulder, and I bought some stuff. And then when I was at Dallas Card Show, I walked by a showcase, saw a Kyler Murray Kaboom, BGS 9.5, and I looked at the card, and it caught my eye. And this is before the Kaboom madness happened. And so I asked the dealer, and he had just bought the card, and he marked it up, I think, $300 from his purchase. Well, there was a comp that had just sold that day. It ended up being a pretty attractive deal. So I picked up the Kyler Murray Kaboom BGS 9.5, and I was like, I was going to walk out of Dallas without a card, and that was the one card I got. And so the card was awesome. I'm a Kyler Murray fan, but I took the card to the National because I was like, we'll see what happens. Like, now's the time to offload a player like Kyler Murray when all the hype's out there. So I was walking by, and my brother grabbed me. He was like, "Hey, you have to go over to this showcase and look at this card. I like, before I was like 10 steps away and I saw the card he was talking about because I could see the shine. It's a 2011 Crystal Atomic Refractor, Peyton Manning, BGS 10, pristine. This is the only Crystal Atomic Refractor that Topps did. Pristine, population 1. I saw the price tag on the card, and I walked up to the dealer and I said, "Hey, are you interested in a Kyler Murray Kaboom?" And he said, "Yes, I am." And I said, "All right, I'll give you this Kyler Murray Kaboom, and I get and this is the cash I'm asking for on top of it for that Peyton Manning." And he thought about it for a second, and he said, "Deal." So I walked away. I gave him my Kyler Murray Kaboom. I walked away with the Manning card that's going to be in my PC forever and cash. Yeah. And I thought I did it big, and that's what I wanted to do. Well, since then, the Kyler Murray card has probably doubled in price, but I don't look at that. I look at, what did this card get me? And I've got a card that it's going to, last in my PC forever. So I just wanted to share that story because it's like, it's significant to me, and where I have, the Kyler card's gone up. I don't care. Like, I'm going to still cheer for Kyler. Like, the end result is I got a card that's going to be in my collection for a while.
Yeah, and Peyton Manning already in the Hall of Fame. The other thing we forget too, I mean, he's now he's on ESPN with Eli doing Monday Night Football, which, by the way, I love. So he's even though he's not playing no more, he's still in the picture. He's still in the forefront. And whether you're a Colts fan or you're not, very few people don't like Peyton Manning. He's just a good, down to earth kind of guy, happy-go-lucky, so to speak, Hall of Famer, 2 Super Bowl rings. And so that, regardless of where that trade/cash deal is today, it's still a great card. Like you said, it's going to be in your PC forever. And I'm not, obviously, Brett, neither one of us are wishing any ill will on anyone, let alone Kyler Murray. You just don't know, right? It's football. It's a physical sport. And we've seen things happen, unfortunately, where careers end prematurely. And Peyton's record is cemented. It is what it is, and it's a great career at that. That's actually still going when it comes to on TV and shows and commercials. I mean, he's a very he could do movies if he wanted to. I mean, the commercials he's done are just hilarious. And if he ever wanted to do movies, he could actually do it. I think he's got that sort of chops. And again, I'm not a Colts guy, but I'm a Peyton Manning guy. He's a hard guy not to like. Let me just put it like that.
Yeah, I listened to his Hall of Fame speech a few times, and after I listened to it the first time, I said, I've heard Peyton talk a few times, and it sounds like he's jockeying to be the next commissioner of the NFL. That's what that speech sounded like. So he's going to stay in the picture, that's for sure.
Yeah, I don't have a vote, but I don't want to make this Roger Goodell stinks show, but if they were running against each other, I know who I'm voting for. I think everyone else does now based on what I said. But Brett, man, I had a blast. We could probably do 3 more hours, but we gotta call it sometime. I'll have you back on. That's one thing for sure. I'll say I always give whoever my guest is give out where people can find Stacking Slabs website, social media, wherever. You take your time, promote what you got to promote.
Yeah, appreciate that, John. 2 episodes a week, Wednesday, Friday. You can find it wherever you listen to your fine audio content like Sports Card Nation, Stacking Slabs. I'm active on Twitter. My primary platform is Instagram. A lot of engagement there. Shoot me a message. Tell me you heard the show at Stacking Slabs. I do have a newsletter called The Weekly Rip that's retire. It's taking a little hiatus as I prep for new member in Stacking Slabs HQ to take up some space. I will get the Weekly Rip going back. You can find the link to that if you sign up. It's free. in my show notes. But yeah, I appreciate anyone stopping by, and if you're already a listener, appreciate all the support.
Yeah, I was wrong. I think I said Tuesday and Friday. It's Wednesday and Friday. So I don't know what day it is half the time.
Neither do I.
So my bad. But Wednesday and Friday, and Fridays with guests like us here. And you were a great one as well today. Happy to have you on. Again, won't be as long as you come back, it won't be the only time. It won't be your only appearance. So
thanks for having me, John. Keep up the good work. Enjoy the show as always.
Thanks, Brett. Be good.
I know the chunky that left these chunkies. Newman! Open the door, Newman. I know you're in there. Hello, Sports Card Nation. All right, it's time for Newman's Rambling, where I select one question I get each week and answer it on the air.
John, you seem like an astute man.
Thank you, Mr. Walken.
Maybe you can help explain something to me.
Well, I'll give it my best shot.
All right, this week's question comes by way of Instagram, Cobra44 user. And he asked, basically, I'll paraphrase, he says, hobby-wise, who do I feel is this year's best rookie to collect? And we could go a lot of different ways with that question, right? Who I think is going to have the best career, most valuable. You look at a guy like Trevor Lawrence, his cards are already kind of pricey, so is it too late? He actually is not playing well right now. I love Najee Harris, the running back from my Steelers, but as you heard me and Brett talk about on this very show, running backs have a short window career, and even the great ones. Every once in a while you have that rare guy that plays double-digit years, those Hall of Famers, right? Is he going to be that guy? It's too early to tell. I'm real cautious with running backs in the NFL. You look at how many really, came out of the gates blazing hot and just faded. Even you look at someone right now, Le'Veon Bell, right? An afterthought. At one point, not very long ago, 3-4 years ago, best running back in the game. No one even talks about him anymore. He's not going to be a Hall of Famer. And so you got to be careful, I think, with running backs. And we're seeing they don't get drafted as high as they used to. Teams are going running back by committee. Wide receivers are now kind of the nearest thing. Obviously football hobby is a quarterback driven hobby, as again me and Brett talked about, but I think wide receivers are closing that gap a little bit. So I think Trevor Lawrence is sort of the obvious answer, but I don't want to give the obvious answer here too as well. Trevor Lawrence is probably one of the pricier guys in this year's rookie class. In other words, whatever set it is, you look at what the price is, he's going to be probably the most expensive card, base card, along those lines. So I'm going to give you another guy. I don't want to call him a sleeper by any stretch of the imagination, but a guy that I think, was going to have a really good career, potential Hall of Fame. Again, way too early to tell, but a guy I would look at if I was you to answer the question. That's not Trevor Lawrence, and here it comes. But I think one of the best receivers in this year's class, and he's showing it early, is Jamar Chase. But he makes me a little nervous, kind of got a little diva in him, so I want to give you a sleeper pick here. Not really a sleeper, he just had a big week 2 weeks ago, but Rondell Moore from the Arizona Cardinals, wide receiver, explosive, good route runner, student of the game. He's going to be, I don't know, an all-pro, maybe not every year, but has that potential. Got a great quarterback throwing to him that might be a connection for, maybe potentially double-digit years. Kyler Murray to Rondell Moore might be something you better get familiar with. So that's sort of my sort of under the radar pick. Jamar Chase has got all the tools, but I wanted to give you one. It's easy just to say Jamar Chase and the first basically wide receiver off the board, but Rondell Moore is the guy to keep an eye on. So there you go.
Hey everybody, have you heard about Collectible? It's the one-stop shop where any collector can buy and trade affordable shares in some of the most rare and valuable sports cards and memorabilia in the world, starting from just $5. From 1952 Mickey Mantle PSA 10s and Wilt Chamberlain's iconic rookie uniform to one-of-one Patrick Mahomes RPAs, rare LeBron James logo mats, and everything in between, Collectible is creating never-before-seen access and opportunities for investing in the hobby. Just download the app and sign up with the referral code SCN to get your first share free. Please note this is not a recommendation or solicitation to buy any security. All investment decisions should be undertaken after doing your own research.
That's going to do it for episode 147. First of all, thank you out there listening and downloading this program. We are not here without you, and want to definitely acknowledge that each and every week. Want to thank my guest today, Beth McGrath. Have a lot of things in common with the football thread. 2 shows a week, similar sort of the way we go about things. And Brett has the saying I always say, right? Has his finger on the pulse, and it's got a passion for the hobby, and that's something we can't overlook. And glad he made some time for the show. Happy to have him on. We'll have him on again, I'm sure, sometime down the line as well. Okay, little tease for next week's Sports Card Nation. If you know what I'm about and what I stand for, I believe in equal time. We're going to have a guest. We haven't done the interview yet, so this is all tentative, but we're going to have a guest from a company that's had some things said about it that are not flattering. I have very strong opinions about it, and someone from that company is going to come on. We're not going to just talk about some of those negative things only, but they are going to be addressed, and then we're going to talk about what that company's doing. If it goes down. Again, at the time of this recording, we haven't done the interview yet, so hopefully, if all goes well, it will happen, and we'll have that next week. And I'm biased, but I will say this: it'll be one you won't want to miss. So, with that being said, I'll leave you on that note. But once again, remember, the hobby is the people.